Let's work on part 2, scenarios for analysis. So, using the graph below to answer these questions, identify which graph represents the scenario listed below. So, again, here's going to be good to have that Google Doc with the reasons that these curves can shift right or left, the reasons for an increase or decrease in demand, or the reasons for an increase or decrease in supply. Right here, we see an increase in demand. I'm going to go ahead and label these graphs, okay? Demand increase is what graph A is. Graph B is a demand decrease. You can see the demand curve moving to the left here, the demand curve moves to the right here. Graph C is a supply increase. And graph D is a supply decrease. So we have to figure out which of these scenarios fit which of these graphs. And we're going to do this first example together. Okay? Scenario A is that people's incomes increase, allowing them to buy more iPhones. Well, looking at that list that I keep telling you to go look at, it says that an increase in consumer income is one reason why the demand curve could shift right. So this is going to be A, aka increase in demand. And notice what happens when we increase demand and supply stays the same. The price is going to go up and the quantity is going to go up. So more people will be buying them and the price will also increase, which means that if people get a raise, prices tend to go up on goods. The price of display modules, an important part for the iPhone, increases. Okay, so this sounds like it's about making iPhones. It sounds like it has to do with the costs involved in supplying iPhones to the market. So we need to look at the reasons that a supply curve could shift left or right. Well, the price of display modules is what we call an input price into the iPhone. In other words, you need to have these to make these. So if the price of these goes up, that's going to be an increase in input prices, and that's one of the reasons why a supply curve can shift to the left. In other words, we're going to be supplying less of this item at any given price because it is now more expensive to make. And when this happens, it increases the price and it decreases the quantity. So scenario B's best fit is with graph D, which is a decrease in supply. Now the price of the Samsung Galaxy is a substitute for the iPhone, and it increases. Well, substitutes seem to be an important factor with demand curves when I'm looking at my cheat sheet list. It says that a decrease in the price of substitutes can shift the demand curve left. This is an increase. My list also says that an increase in the price of substitutes could cause the demand curve to shift to the right. So if a price of a substitute good increases, then the demand for the original product may increase. In other words, if the price of Samsung Galaxies is going up, more people might want to switch to the iPhone. So this looks like a demand increase. The demand curve is going to shift to the right. This is A, and this is an increase in demand. So it's not just the costs involved or tastes, it also has to do with what other kinds of goods are available. All of these things affect demand. Moving on to scenario D. A new technological innovation occurs which allows firms to produce iPhones faster. Again, this sounds like technology, and we know technology is one of the factors that affects supply. All right, I'm looking at our cheat sheet here, and it says that technological improvements can make production more efficient, less expensive, increasing the supply of goods. This causes the supply curve to move to the right. Okay, this is graph C, an increase in supply. And with this increase in supply, we're going to notice that the price goes down and we get more of them. This is technological progress in a nutshell. This is a good thing for everyone. Okay, E. The government increases the import tax on China on iPhones from China by 30%. So an import tax is a special kind of tax that has another name you may have heard in the news. It's called a tariff. Okay, so what actually happens according to economic theory when you put a tariff on something? For example, iPhones. All right, so a tariff is basically an increase in taxes. And this is one of the reasons that a supply curve can shift to the left, according to my cheat sheet. So supply curve shifting to the left looks like D. So when a government talks about putting tariffs on something, what that's going to do is it's going to increase the price of that thing. It's pretty simple. You tax it, it's going to cost more, and guess who ends up paying? It's you and me. It's whoever purchases the final product. The company doesn't have to pay for that tax. They are going to just pass that cost down to you. So now you get to pay that tariff. So iPhones, getting a tariff on them, we're going to get less iPhones, and they're going to be more expensive. That's the effect of a tariff on any good. So this is D, and this is a decrease in supply. The price of the iPhone case, a complement to iPhones, increases. So what about complementary goods? We need to look for our cheat sheet, look under demand curves. So why can demand curve shift left or right? It says that a demand curve can shift to the right if there's a decrease in the price of complementary goods. We have an increase in this case, so checking my cheat sheet, it says yes, an increase in the price of complementary goods. If that goes up, the demand can go down. The demand can shift to the left and decrease. In other words, if iPhone cases start getting really expensive, then I don't want to buy an iPhone because I know I'm going to have to get a case to protect it, and the cases are getting way too expensive, so I will be less likely to want to buy an iPhone. So this looks like a demand shifting to the left situation. The best match is graph B, where the demand curve shifts to the left. Notice the price goes down in this situation. I guess that's good for consumers, but also the quantity is going down. Less people want iPhones. Okay? So it's interesting to see here. If the price of iPhones goes up, how it affects iPhones is that we want to buy them less, and the company is going to have to lower the price to get us to that equilibrium. So in this way, the market is competitive and works to keep prices down, assuming that there is real competition. So we'll get more into that in future lessons. But right now, we'll just know that when there's an increase in the cost of a complementary good, like iPhone cases to iPhones, the demand is going to shift down. This is going to be a decrease in demand. It's a shift to the left in the demand curve. So that's how you work through these scenarios, folks. You're going to look at that cheat sheet. You're going to look at these graphs. And I recommend, labeling the graphs so that you know what they look like, what they mean. The supply curve moving to the left is a supply decrease. If it moves to the right, it's a supply increase. We also have demand decreases to the left and demand increasing to the right. With that, I think you are ready to work on the market, supply, and demand for Nintendo Switch examples. Let me know if you have any questions. Good luck. In the video, we are going to move on to the next type of problem. Number 9. It says graph the changes on the graphs below by indicating a shift in supply or demand, and circle rise or fall to show the impact on the price and quantity in the market. So what we're going to be doing is drawing graphs like S2 or D2 depending on the scenario, and then looking at the graph and figuring out, did the price go up at the new equilibrium, and did the quantity go up or did they go down, and vice versa. So we'll see how different scenarios, real world scenarios, affect our graphs, our model. Okay, Georgia is a major producer of peaches. This past February, there was a hard freeze, and it reduced the peaches to mush. It reduced the yield of peaches by 50%. Illustrate on the graphs the impact of the freeze on the peach market. So first off, the freeze happened in Georgia and only Georgia. It reduced the yield of peaches by 50%. At any given price, this graph needs to move about halfway over to the left, okay? This is my new S curve, my new supply curve. We had a shift to the left. Yes, please draw the arrows. And we have a new equilibrium here. I'd like you to also mark that. So this is my PE2, and this is my QE2. And yes, label all of these things, please. I'll dock you for points if you don't. Make sure you label your new price at equilibrium and your new quantity at equilibrium, as well as your new curve. So this is a shift to the left. The impact on prices is that they increase. So Georgia peaches are going to be more expensive now, and we have less quantity. Okay, makes a lot of sense. We had a bit hard winter, we lost a lot of peaches, so the farmers have to charge more, and they don't have as many to sell. Over in California, we had beautiful weather, no hard freeze. And so what's going to happen is that peaches in Georgia and peaches in California are pretty much the same good. So I can't get my Georgia peaches anymore, or they're harder to get. There's less of them to go around. I might decide to buy some peaches from California. And you go to the grocery store, you see peaches, you see fruit and produce that comes from all over the country. So you might notice, oh, there's a bag of peaches that are really expensive. They come from Georgia. The price has increased. So now I'm going to go ahead and buy peaches in California instead. What this means is that there's a increase in the price of a substitute good. This causes the demand to shift to the right. And this is going to be D2. And we have this shift to the right. We have a new equilibrium quantity. And we have a new equilibrium price. And interestingly enough, as that demand starts to increase, the price of peaches in California starts to go up, competing with, Georgia peaches. And also, the quantity of California peaches sold increases. So ultimately, this winter that affected peaches in Georgia has caused prices to rise not only on peaches from Georgia, but also peaches from California due to this shift in demand over here and the shift in supply in Georgia. Pretty interesting. So let's look at the market for peaches and how it affects peach juice. So peach juice need peaches. Peaches is an input price into peach juice. The cost of peaches is going to affect the cost of peach juice. So an increase in the cost of a input price is going to affect the supply curve. It's going to shift the supply curve to the left. So similarly to how it shifted our peaches in the state of Georgia to the left, it is also going to shift our supply curve for peach juice to the left. And we have a new QE, QE2 here. We have a new price at equilibrium, PE2 here. And we see that the price increases, it rises, and the quantity falls. So oranges is a substitute for peach. So we know that the price of peaches now everywhere, the price has gone up for peaches. And oranges are a substitute for peaches. So looking at my cheat sheet, I'm looking at what happens with substitutes. An increase in the price of substitutes can shift the demand curve to the right according to my cheat sheet. In other words, peaches are more expensive now, so I don't want to buy them as much. I'm going to start buying oranges instead to get my vitamin C and my fruit fibers and all that good stuff. So you got a new quantity at equilibrium here, and we have a new price at equilibrium here. Okay? This is now my new equilibrium, and we see that the price of oranges has now also increased, and the quantity of oranges has increased. So this hard winter that affected the peaches in Georgia has resulted in an increase in the price of peach juice, of peaches in California, and the increase of the price of oranges. It's really interesting to see that all this happen. One shift in something, one event can cause the price of not a whole lots of not unrelated things, but a whole lots of things to also go up. And it maybe shows us that these things are more closely related than we might think. So we have some more examples to work through like this. And I'm going to work through one more of these with you. Oh, excuse me. No, you can do number 10 on your own. Good job. You got this. You got this. I believe in you. We're going to move on in the video and look at number 11 and 12. Okay, the market for healthy, organic, homemade food. So in this scenario, people have less time to make their own food at home, and they rely upon fast food for dinner. So people have less time. They're going to start buying fast food. They're not going to be buying this healthy, organic, homemade food. They don't have time to make it anymore. So the demand is shifting to the left. Okay, this is just a change in habits, I suppose, or a change in the availability of time to make healthy, organic, homemade food. And what happens is that healthy, organic, homemade food is going to become cheaper. Okay, we're moving to a new price at equilibrium here. And we also have a new quantity at equilibrium here, which is also lower. So less people buying less people buying healthy, organic, homemade food. It becomes cheaper and people buy less of it. Reports show that eating organic food maintains your health and increases longevity. So if enough people read these reports and believe it and want to do something about it, then we would expect the demand to increase. People will start to recognize the value of eating healthy, organic food, which is going to cause, unfortunately, the price to rise. But fortunately, more food, healthy, organic food being made, purchased, eaten. So we know that this is an increase because we saw the quantity increase this way. We saw the price go up this way. All right, that is number 11. We have number 12 to look at. So let's work through number 12. Suppose we are analyzing the market for leather jackets. Graph the following changes in the market supply and demand. All right, winter starts and the weather turns sharply colder. Okay, colder weather, people want to start buying jackets. Demand is going to increase. Ooh, this one is nice. We don't have to do any more analysis, just have to show what happens with the graph. Okay, the price of leather, an important part of making leather jackets, increases. So an increase in the price of input prices is going to cause the supply curve to shift to the left. And finally, summer starts and the 100-degree heat is on the horizon. No one wants a jacket in 100-degree heat, so no one's buying them. Demand decreases. Now, why would this be beneficial? How could you use this information? I mean, let's say you're going to open up a store and you're going to sell clothing. You might want to know about supply and demand to think about this, okay? When the winter comes, I can charge a higher price and I'm going to sell more jackets. When that summer starts, I better have a sale. I'm going to drop my price. I'm going to be able to sell, I'm going to have to sell fewer jackets. And if the price of my leather goes up, I better be raising my price, okay? In fact, economists would say to stay in business, you have to. So you might not even have to really think about the graphs because you're busy trying to stay in business. But I tell you, if you know about this kind of graph, you can start to analyze these situations. So we're going to look over at this. I need you to do this part on your own. Let me know if you have questions. In the video, we are moving on to part